The AL West is going to be one of the craziest divisions in all of baseball this season. One of the reasons, the Texas Rangers. Have they spent money? I mean, that's an understatement. Let's talk about it here on the Route Report edition of the OK Baseball Podcast. Welcome into another edition of the Route Report here at the OK Baseball Podcast. Another team preview as we can continue on here. We are in the month of March now. We play baseball, regular season baseball in the month of March, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we are at now. Opening day is just around the corner. We're going to talk to Texas Rangers today, and with me for another year with these team previews, Ben Dieter over at the Ranger Report. Ben, looking great as ever. That beard is just shining in this camera. I love it. Fantastic. I can never get to your standards, my friend, but I wouldn't even want to try because I know I'd always be in second place. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I take care of it. That's what people always tell me. Yeah, I like this thing. It usually goes about halfway through baseball season because it gets too hot, but I keep it usually from October until about May or June, and then it's gone.
Do people like on your podcast? Do they have to? You have to reintroduce yourself after you buzz it off? Or
I do actually. The first time I did it, I came on and my co-host CJ was like, "Who's that?" It took him a second to realize it was me because I do not look like the same person. I look like a 12-year-old without a beard.
Gotta love it. Well, I'm sure you're in good graces because this offseason for the Texas Rangers has been absolutely ecstatic. But before I get all your fun optimism about 2023, let's take a step backwards and let's look at 2022. There was some optimism there as well. But however, they ended 68-94, a lot worse than I think many people thought so, because at the beginning of the offseason, you signed Corey Seager, you signed Marcus Semien, and there was a lot of just hope that this team would compete with the Houston Astros at the top of this division. But obviously didn't happen. There were some issues that happened in the clubhouse. The manager was fired. Now, going into 2023, you have a World Series winning manager in Bruce Bochy, and you add in some pitching staff. But before we really dig into some of those fun, juicy topics, what was your takeaway from 2022?
Yeah, let's look at 2022. For me, it was my first year to actually cover the team as media, go to the press box, cover the team. So for me, it was a fun year, even though they finished 60 with only 68 wins. I got to go and meet a lot of people. It was a whole lot of fun. So I'm finally getting to that point where I actually get to cover the team, and that was a blast. But yeah, the other thing to remember is that I think I had them at between 70 and 72 wins. So I was really close on that one, I think is where I put them last year. But you brought in Seager, you brought in Semien, but the thing that most people forget once the season got going and finished is the lockout. Like they brought in those four guys, John Gray, Semien, Seager, and it's escaped me who the fourth one was. They did 4 in one day, and I can't remember who the fourth one was now, but no, it wasn't Garver. So anyway, whoever they brought in that day, and then 4 hours later, those guys were locked out of the facilities until February, March, whenever all that opened back up. So they never got to meet their coaches. They never got to work with the staff. They didn't do their normal offseason workouts. So I think the reason Semien and Seager started so slow is because they didn't have a regular offseason and they switched teams. Because if you look at his numbers last year, Semien was an all-star from June to the end of the season. But in April and May, he was dreadful, and so was Corey Seager, just terrible. And I think that's what led to, that's not the only thing that led to it. Some of the rest of the team played terrible too. They also had some good, Adolis Garcia took a step forward last year. Everyone said he needed to, and he did. Martin Perez, look at the year that he had for the Rangers. He was an all-star, he pitched 196 or 197 innings for the team, which was the most, and had an ERA of, I believe it was under 3, 2.7 something, I believe was his ERA. So some good came out of that 68 win season.
Well, that's good to hear because moving forward to 2023, the optimistic view of this team has returned. And I think there's some great reasons for that. This offseason was incredible for the Texas Rangers. What they spent on guys like Jacob deGrom coming over, they bring in Nathan Eovaldi, they re-sign Perez, as you mentioned. This rotation alone is going to be fun. What's your thoughts initially? I guess the biggest elephant in the room is you guys have Jacob deGrom now. How does that feel?
Well, it feels crazy because I was listening to a national radio show today and they were talking about him about something. And I was like, hey, the national news is talking about the Rangers by accident because they were talking about when he was a Met, but they were still talking about a player that was currently a Texas Ranger. So you don't hear a lot of national coverage of them, but and they haven't deserved it in the last 5 years, to be honest. But But I think Chris Young is doing a great job as the GM since he took over for John Daniels when they fired him last year, which made a lot of Rangers fans really, really happy, by the way. But I've met and talked to JD. He's a nice guy, but I mean, he was gonna leave after this season anyway. So I thought it was kind of weird that they went ahead and fired him like they did because he was gonna step down. But I guess the owner wanted to prove a point. But anyway, yeah, DeGrom, and like you said, we talked a little off the air that Evaldi, that's an under the radar great signing. Evaldi is a great pitcher, a great veteran, and even though DeGrom's going to be your ace, obviously, but man, bringing in Evaldi when you already had Perez and John Gray, and then of course Andrew Heaney as well, or Andrew Heaney, sorry, I always forget. We made up a song on our show about a Heaney Martini one time to remember how to pronounce
Nice.
his name, but Andrew Heaney, and then you've got guys like Dane Dunning and Cole Reagans. If I've been watching and keeping up with the Ranger spring training, obviously. And Cole Reagans last year was sitting at 92, 94. And in spring training this year, Bruce Bochy has talked about him twice. He's hitting 96 and he hit 99 in his last outing. And he'd never topped 94 before. And he just said he tried some new stuff during the offseason, got a new workout routine, worked on strength. And all of a sudden, you got a left-hander hurling the ball 99 miles an hour, 96 consistently. He said, we're going to have to take a look at him a little harder than we thought we were going to do. He said he's doing what we want people to do. He's making it hard on us.
Gotta love that. I would not be surprised once this season is over that we look back at this rotation and Nathan Eovaldi is the best pitcher in the 2023 season. You think that, like you mentioned, this is, I think that the underrated pick of the offseason, not just for the Rangers, but I think this was a really sneaky good pick. And obviously he's overshadowed by DeGrom. Would you be surprised if that happened?
No, I was surprised when they got him, to be honest with you. I did not see that one coming. We thought they were done with pitching. And then all of a sudden they announced that they brought in Eovaldi, and I looked, I knew something about him, but I looked up his numbers and I was like, wow, how was he still out there at this point? How did nobody else pick him up yet? Because he has some great, I mean, you've got the opportunity if him and Martin Perez and Jacob deGrom all stay healthy, you could have three guys with an ERA under 3 in that rotation. And that, I mean, how can you say that they're not going to be a playoff contender if you have three guys that could possibly have ERAs under 3? Now, the big caveat is none of those guys except for Perez have stayed healthy over the last few years.
Yeah, definitely going to be the if-then statement there. Can they stay healthy?
Yep.
You talk about the new manager. You talk about with the management, with the change in the front office, obviously the change in management as well. Bruce Bochy coming in. We know what he's done with the Giants in the past decade plus. He did some fantastic things while he was there. Took a year off, came in and now took over for Texas. It seems like a really perfect fit for Bochy, not going to lie. How do you like him being your skipper?
Yeah, and I think, if they win a World Series with him, I think he'll be the first manager ever to beat a team in their first World Series and then win their first World Series with them if he winds up winning a World Series with them. So he beat them in their very first ever World Series appearance, and then he would be the manager if they can do it. I don't think, now, don't get me wrong, they're not doing that this year. They're not winning the World Series this year. I'm not going to predict that. I'm not that bold. But, I mean, another under-the-radar signing is bringing back Mike Maddox as the pitching coach. Bochy was also excited about that. But if you look at Rangers history, their 5 greatest ERA seasons were all under Mike Maddox back from 2009 to 2014, I believe. They had an ERA under 3.5 all 5 seasons, and which are under 4. I'm sorry, under 3.5 for 3 of those 5 seasons, which is incredible for a rotation for a team. The Rangers have never been under 4 the rest of their entire existence, but they had 3 of them while Mike Maddox was their pitching coach in the 2010 era. So, he's another good signing. But yeah, I mean, Bochy, I was super excited when they got him. Like I predicted it because he made the most sense, but I was hoping that they would actually do it. And I was pleasantly surprised when they did.
Lots of new rule changes happening in 2023. We mentioned players such as Semin and Seager who struggled last season. Well, with the shift being restricted, there was a huge article that came out, I'm sure you saw a few months ago, talking about how Corey Seager could be one that really benefits the most out of this shift restriction. He hit over 20 balls into the shift last season, and that would have moved his batting average up about 30 points. It would have battled with him to be, obviously it's the National League side, but he would have had a better batting average than the NL MVP Paul Goldschmidt. Really interesting to put in perspective there. What do you think about these new rule changes, pitching clock, shift changes, all your thoughts on that? And what do you think about Corey Seager maybe being able to benefit from it?
Yeah, I didn't like the idea of the pitching clock until I've been watching some spring training games, and it's not that bad. I mean, the speed of the game, I've always said it's fine, but, it is right. Guys spend too long stepping out of the box, adjusting batting gloves, looking at their bat, adjusting their helmet, and the pitcher steps off for 3 or 4 times, looking at the back of the mound. I mean, it's not bad to take some of that stuff out. It's going to knock 15 to 20 minutes off the game. And I mean, not that, I mean, I enjoy games. I enjoy them being 3 hours and 15 minutes, but I also enjoy watching the game, and so the pitching clock I'm okay with. I didn't think I was going to be, but surprisingly I am. I'm okay with it. And then the shift I like, but they're still going to find ways, to because they can still move guys around in the infield and in the outfield. They just can't. They have to have everyone on the dirt. They'll find ways to try to do it, but I still think it is going to help Seager. I think you'll see his batting average 15, 20 points higher this year because of it. And then if you look at a guy who's not here anymore, I think Joey Gallo is going to have a monster year in Minnesota, because he hit into what, 40 or 50 shifts last year, I think. I mean, well, in New York, he didn't hit into anything, but once he left there, he started hitting into stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he made the joke saying that he was going to add it to his resume on LinkedIn, that he was good at hitting into the shift. So
Yeah.
it might hurt his resume on LinkedIn, but I do think his stats are going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
I think that you have a fantastic team this season. We talked about Seven Seager. Obviously, Nathaniel Lowe, I think he could have an even better year too. I think lefties are going to absolutely match this year. I think we're going to see a really big jump with the lefties. Not a lefty, but I do want to bring up him. Your number one prospect in the organization, Josh Jung. He is set at this time to be the starting third baseman, what I've seen in reports.
Yep.
Is that what you're tracking? And then what do you think about him? You think he's ready for that next step?
I hope so. He was set to be the opening day third baseman last year, and then got injured in spring training for the second year in a row. But yeah, he's got nothing to prove at AAA anymore. He was down at AAA. They left him there too long, actually, which they did it for a reason. They wanted to test him and see what he'd do going through a slump. But when he came out of the box from his injury, I believe, if I'm remembering right, he had like 3 home runs in the first 4 games and batted like 560. And then he cooled off to like 350 or 360 while he was in AAA.
Cooled off.
Yeah, he cooled off down to like 350. And then when he came up, he still hit like 240 in the majors, struck out a little more than they wanted him to, but he got a month of major league experience, 3 weeks of major league experience of playing consistent third base. And he's got nothing to worry about this year because they've told him, you are the starting third baseman. Like it's your job, even if you suck in spring training, it's your job. So he knows it's his job now. So that infield, man, if he plays anything like he has at every level, that's one of the best infields in baseball with Lowe, Simeon, Seager, and Josh Jung over there. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And if they can keep, Seager had a lot of errors last year, but again, I think that was the weird offseason, weird spring training, hopefully. So it'll be interesting to see if they can tighten up a little bit. That's going to be quite an infield.
Someone who is covering the Rangers now on a professional side, finally getting a chance to do it with the team. You said you're paying attention to spring training this year. What's a position battle maybe that not many are paying attention to, or something that is the key point with the Rangers in spring training until we get to opening day?
I think it's who they're going to have start in left field and who they're going to have on the bench to help in the outfield, because you've got Bubba Thompson, who finished as the left fielder last year mostly because Brad Miller was hurt. Bubba is, I don't know if you know a lot about Bubba, but he was 60 for 60 in AAA stealing bases.
Wow.
And he didn't play the full season. Then he came up to the majors, and I believe he was 18 out of 20, but he didn't get caught. He overslid the bag twice.
So this is pre pizza box era too.
Yeah, yeah. And you're talking about out of 80 attempts, he stole base 80 times, but overslid twice. So you're talking about a guy, his speed is unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. So I think he is not going to be the starter, in my opinion. I think you're going to see, and I think that's why they brought in Robbie Grossman. They brought in Robbie Grossman as well. We haven't talked about that. I think him and Brad Miller are going to be your platoon lefty-righty in the outfield. And I think Bubba Thompson's going to be your third outfielder and your pinch runner for late in games when they want to make a pitcher nervous. Because if a guy was 80 for 80 last year between 2 levels, you're going to be a little nervous when that guy gets on base over there at first base, because he's going to steal it. It's just a matter of which pitch he's going to do it on.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know. I mean, I knew that guy was fast. I've seen him before, but didn't know the stats were 60 for 60 or
yeah, and that was, like I said, and he didn't even play the last month of the AAA season, and he was 60 for 60.
That's wild. I'm looking forward. We asked the question on our flagship show just a few weeks ago, Sean Doyle and I, and we were talking, and we thought, can anybody actually beat the Rickey Henderson record? Is that up for grabs now with this new, incentive to steal bags? Maybe this guy's the guy we need to put on our radar.
Yeah, if he plays enough, I think he could probably do it.
All right, we talked about the rotation, obviously how fun that's going to be. The lineup's really cool. If there's any kind of weakness on this squad, would you point to the bullpen?
Assuredly, yes, I would point to the bullpen. You've got Brock Burke, who was amazing last year, but he was a rookie mostly. He got a little time before, but he was amazing. They let Matt Moore go, which I didn't understand because Matt Moore was one of their best relievers last year. They let him go because I think they have stuff ready in the minors. Taylor Hearn, who was once a starter, came into the bullpen at the end of the year last year and just tore it up out of the bullpen. They really like him there. Power left-hander who can go multiple innings. So he's going to be good. Other than those guys I just mentioned, there's a few more. You've got Joe Barlow who closed for a little bit. You've got Jose Leclerc who closed for a little bit. They brought back Ian Kennedy, although he's on a minor league contract. If he makes the team, he's also a former closer. So you're talking about, the back end might be okay, but I'm afraid of the front end. It's a lot of young guys with not a lot of experience who were up and down all last year. And I thought they were going to address it, but instead they got 5 starters instead of addressing the bullpen. So I think you might see who we talked about earlier. You might see Cole Reagans move to the bullpen. You might see Dane Dunning move to the bullpen. I think you're going to see a lot of arms come in and out of that bullpen this year, trying to piece it together. And I think that they're hoping that their pitchers can go 7 strong and they don't have to use the bullpen as much as they did last year.
And you still have Jake Odorizzi, right? He's still in there after.
Correct. Yeah, I forgot about him. So he'll be coming out of the bullpen too, most likely, or they might have him. They might start with 6 starters or something, and depending on how the schedule works, and have him be a starter. But he's another one that can go multiple innings, like Taylor Hearn.
I like the idea of having a 6-man rotation, especially at the beginning of the season. You see more teams doing that,
Yeah.
and it seems to be successful. You get teams down the stretch, especially with your stud pitchers. I mean, we saw it with the Phillies. The Phillies really benefited from that. They were on fire in the postseason because they had the opportunity to do that 6-man rotation. Same with the Padres. I do think that's an interesting concept. You have a lot of starting pitchers, but some of them might be forced into bullpen roles. All right. Well, spring training obviously is fun this season. The Rangers are going to be a blast once the actual opening day starts. But a team that is had a hard time in the AL West the last few years because the Astros have completely dominated not just the West, but the American League in general. Yeah. Well, this season, you don't have to play them 13 times instead of 19. What's your thoughts on the schedule changes and only having to see division foes? Yes, that's probably a good thing about the Astros, but you're also only seeing the A's 13 times as well.
Yeah, I wish we could have gone ahead and done the A's 19 and everybody else 13. But no, I mean, I don't know. I'm old. I've been watching baseball for a really long time. I'm okay with some changes, and I'll get used to this one, but I kind of liked the 19 times each because that's a familiar, it's a rivalry. You play the most, but they're still playing the most. I mean, they're not playing anyone else 13 times in the rest of the league. And I do think it's kind of cool. You get to see everybody every year like that. That's a nice addition, I guess, because there's some teams you only see every 5 or 6 years the way they were doing it. So this year, maybe fans of the Brewers, they know they get to see at least every other year the Brewers are going to come to Arlington. So, they like the fact. It's a good idea. I don't know. It'll take some getting used to, I'll say that, but I think eventually it's going to be a good thing.
Do you think with 13 games, do you think that strengthens the fact that the rivalry or make it worse? Because now the games mean a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it strengthens the rivalry, but I also think it makes the division race a little different because before you had enough head-to-heads where you could change things. If the Rangers were 3 games out against the Astros with 4 games against the Astros left, then you kind of control your own destiny. But now if you're done with the team and, early August, then you have to depend on someone else to beat them and not you. But I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, you still play them more than anybody else.
That's a good take. That's interesting. And that's very true. Yeah. I mean, we're going to see a lot of new things this season with the rule changes and the pitch clock. You're going to be able to see more baseball if you want to watch more games because you're going to have the opportunity to do so. And then you're going to see less of against division rivals. All right. Obviously, we talk about some fun pitchers that are on the team right now. But you and I both know there are some very fun pitchers in the prospects right now. Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, there's just a couple of them. They got their spring training debut this year on the same game. Thought that was really interesting.
Yep.
What's your thoughts about Leiter and Rocker, and then any other prospects on your radar this spring?
Yeah, so you've got Leiter and you've got Rocker, like you mentioned. Both of them did pretty good. Both of them, I think you're going to see both of them at some point this year make their major league debut, if I had to guess, because Rocker was ahead of Leiter because he already played professional ball, just, not professional, but he played semi-professional ball, to stay ready. And so he's seen some good hitting already. And Leiter was up and down last year at Frisco. He had a couple of amazing games and he got rocked a couple of different times, but I still think he'll make his debut at some point this year. I think he'll start at AA. Both of them will, which that's going to be a rotation everyone's going to want to go see there in Frisco, Texas, because if you have Leiter and Rocker in the same rotation, that's going to be worth going 2 nights in a row to see those 2 guys pitch.
Yeah,
You've also got
absolutely.
Brock Porter, who was that one they stole last year in the draft,
Yes.
but he's not going to be anywhere close to being ready for the majors, but he's one to keep an eye on. And then I don't know if you've heard of Evan Carter. Evan Carter is a batter that everybody is. I mean, he's been comfortable everywhere he's been, just knocking balls all over the field. He finished on the Frisco championship team last year when they won it all in the Texas League. Good hitter. And then Dustin Harris is another one I think you'll see at the major league level this year. And then, of course, everyone kind of forgot about Cole Winn. Cole Winn was the number one prospect there 2 years ago, and he had just a rough year at Round Rock last year. He started out great, and then I think his ERA was 9 for like a month and a half or 2 months, and he got it back down to 5 something by the end of the year. But he just had I think what happened to him is he was overthrowing, over trying to prove that he needed to be in the majors, and he got off of what got him to where he was, and it totally messed up his game, messed up his head, because he got passed by Reagans, who was way behind him 2 years before, with the 2 Tommy John surgeries that he had and all that. But Wynn is a guy I think that is back and ready to prove himself. I think you'll see him in the majors this year too.
You think all these prospects, it's a great thing to have this, but when you're in a window that you're starting to compete, do you see that turning into potential trade bait maybe at the deadline?
Oh yeah, I think a lot of the guys, some I haven't mentioned, like Jonathan Ornelas, Zach Kent is a guy they put on the 40-man roster who had a really good year last year. Jonathan Ornelas as well. I think those guys are going to be trade bait at some point during the year. I mean, they had Mason Englert, who the Detroit Tigers, wrong, football season's over. The Detroit Tigers picked up in the Rule 5 draft, and we were sad to see him go. We've had him on our show a couple of different times, but he last year had a streak. He went from single A to double A, and he threw 13 straight no-hit innings. He threw a 7-inning no-hitter. He got pulled out in the 7th inning in single A. Then he got called up to double A, and he threw a 6-inning no-hitter in double A before they pulled him out. So he went 13 straight innings without giving up a hit on a streak last year. It was amazing. And he still, I think he finished at single A with like a 2-something ERA and a double A with a 3-something ERA. So we were sad to see him go. But I think guys like that, yeah, you're going to see the Rangers use around June or July trade deadline time to get the help they need to make that push for the playoffs.
I remember that MLB draft just last season. The Rangers put an absolute master class with maneuvering their slot value and then getting Porter. Yeah. You're right. It was an absolute steal. I'm looking forward to seeing him. All right, let's put a bow on this one, and let's get your predictions for the 2023 season. Remember last year, I'm sure you can't forget, obviously, your first year covering this team in the booth. Gotta love that, by the way. Congratulations, by the way. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
68-94 last year. Good enough for 4th place in the AL West. Only 8 games ahead of the A's, but 38 games behind the Houston Astros. I hate to say it like that, but that's just how it is.
It was, yeah.
Had the identical home and away splits. Thought that was actually pretty interesting when I looked this up. Both 34 and 47 home and away. Finished the last 10, 3-7. So it didn't end the season quite well either. No. However, going into this offseason, you picked up a fantastic pieces in Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi. We're going to see some hopefully great play right off the bat from Semin and Seager. What is your prediction for where they sit once this season's over in the AL West, and then 68.5 over under for wins in 2023?
All right. Well, first of all, unfortunately, I think the Astros are still the kings of the West. I don't think they're ready to be dethroned yet, because they've shown, they let Carlos Correa walk away. They let, pretty much Jose. Oh shoot, Pena. I forgot his name. Thank you. Yeah, he's pretty much the only one left from that era. Altuve, from the cheating scandal. He's pretty much the only one left from the cheating scandal now. And they still, they were better last year than they were the year that they cheated to win. I say cheated because it doesn't. I think a lot of teams were doing it. Houston just got caught doing it. So anyway,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, they won it legitimately this last year, and they were legitimately the best team in baseball this last year. And I don't think you go from that to not winning the West again. I think the Angels are perennial underachievers. They always look like a contender, and then they always fall off, even with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout leading that team. And then I think Seattle is going to be good. They were good last year. So I think the Rangers still sit 4th in the West, unfortunately, this year. But if the Angels really underachieve, I think the Rangers come up to 3rd. And I think you're looking at a 500 team. I think right around 80 to 82 wins is where they're going to sit this year.
Gotta love that. That's a nice swing compared to where you are at 68
wins.
Yeah,
68 to 80 is a big swing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like Baltimore Orioles 2021 to 2022. If you
Yeah.
remember the run that Orioles just had this year, I
Yeah.
mean, that's basically what you're predicting the Rangers to do. If that happens, I mean, if you're a Rangers fan, I'd be super excited for that 100%.
Well, you put enough money into it, so you hope that it can happen.
Fantastic. Gotta love it. This was fantastic. I'm so glad to have you back on the show. We got to do it again. It can't be just another year away. We got to get another pulse check on these Rangers, maybe around April or May. I got to have
Yeah.
you back on the show, Ben.
And we'll get you back on ours too.
Gotta love it. Let everyone know where they can find you at the Ranger Report and what you got coming up.
Yep, at the Ranger Report. I'm at BeatEater75, my personal Twitter account. If you want to check me out there, I don't really tweet very often on that one, but you can stop by and say hi if you want. But yeah, we've got some minor and major league players coming up. We've got some other stuff coming up. We've got, I mean, we fly by the seat of our pants, so we plan week to week. I think we have Cole Reagans, the pitcher, coming back on here in a week or two, which is great. He's going to talk about his spring, and then we'll break down everything as it happens. So we're now on YouTube, as you know. You've been watching them. We weren't for a long time. Someone told me to do it, and I did, and it like doubled our numbers. So it was a great idea. So you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you want the Rangers lineup every day, I post it around 3:00 every day on Instagram during the regular season. So.
Gotta love it. All that stuff will be in the episode description below as well. So make sure to click on that, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff. Give him 5 stars even before you listen, because I'll vouch for that. What a great listen the Ranger Report is. I make sure I tune into them to get my daily Texas Rangers content all the time. I got to stay up to date. If you notice, if you hear these team previews, everyone, I follow all 30 teams, and guys like Ben help me keep the Rangers intact. Ben, I appreciate
your
it so
job's
much.
harder than mine, man. I just have to follow one team.
Yeah, and I don't have to. Well, I can do it because I don't have to condition this as much as you.
That's
do.
true. It takes time to do this. You're right.
Yeah, so that's where it's at. So if I had a beard, and I wouldn't probably be able to cover 15 teams. So this is where it's at. So I appreciate it. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Route Report here at the OK Baseball Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back here with another team preview as we continue on. We're going to get all 30 this year. We have guests lined up for every single one of them. The first time in the 3-year history that we will get all 30 guests on. Looking forward to that. So be sure to tune in another episode here at OBP. Take care.